for joining me. Now, we've heard an Indian leader here speak out. What about the Canadians? Because a short while ago, or yesterday, in fact, I spoke to Ujjal Dosanjh. He is the former Premier of British Columbia, Vancouver, where a lot of these separatist groups are accused of fomenting turmoil, khalistani groups. Listen into what Ujjal Dosanjh, no friend of Trudeau, had to say. And joining me now is a special guest from Vancouver in Canada, the former Minister of Health of Canada, Premier of British Columbia. Ujjal Dosanjh joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Dosanjh. India-Canada relations spiraling down and down by the day. Justin Trudeau even going to the extent of accusing the Modi government now of criminal activity. How do you read this? What's going on? Why is Trudeau playing with fire?
Well, I think that there are several aspects to it. One is that the RCMP usually don't do news conferences just because the politicians ask them, because there's no political influence in that regard.
That's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police when you say RCMP. Go ahead.
Yes, and I can tell you that from my own experience. I was the Attorney General for BC, and there's a large contingent of RCMP, as was my responsibility. They don't listen to the politicians. There is a clear separation. So they must have had something serious when they held a news conference, which is unusual for them. So in that sense, I think that the Prime Minister should be concerned. But this Prime Minister has mishandled this situation right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. He may have had some political compulsions now because there is the inquiry on foreign interference in Canadian politics that's going on, and he was testifying either today or tomorrow in that. So this may have come in as a handy thing to do politically. But I think if the RCMP has the evidence that it alleges it has, then it's a serious issue. I think the situation from the Indian point of view, I must say, if the allegations are even half true, it doesn't look too good, in the sense that if you add that to what Mr. Modi has been saying, aapke ghar mein ghus ke marenge attitude, this muscular foreign policy attitude, then that creates a problem for the relationship. That is not to say that Mr. Trudeau has not been knee-deep mired in this Khalistani business.
Now, that's the point I wanted to make. That's the point. Mr. Trudeau, as you said, has been knee-deep in what you say Khalistani business. But this is not just business. These are groups which are avowedly linked to terror acts that have in the past caused huge loss of innocent lives. How can a Prime Minister who flirts or engages or co-opts such elements then take the moral high ground and say India is targeting Niger?
Well, I think the distinction is this. They are alleging that the government of India has gangsters that are indirectly or directly doing the damage they're doing in Canada. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mr. Trudeau would say, under the rubric of freedom of expression, people are free to ask for anything. I think what I say is this: Mr. Trudeau has had the implicit and the explicit support of the Khalistanis in his leadership. They've been in his cabinet. He now relies on the support of Jagmeet Singh to remain in minority government, and he's a Khalistani himself. So Mr. Trudeau is complicit in the sense that he has never truly condemned the activities of the extremist Khalistani elements in this country. And he's always taken the protection or the refuge of the freedom of expression, disregarding the fact that these people have engaged in terrorism both against the Sikh community here and the other Indo-Canadian communities here, as well as against India, directly and indirectly. And Air India is just one example.
But that precisely brings me to the point, Mr. Dosanjh. Here is a leader of a sovereign nation, Canada, who's making these allegations openly. Let's assume that the Canadian government has hard, credible evidence that they claim of alleged Indian involvement in the killing of Niger. This could have been done behind closed doors. This could have been done in a diplomatic fashion, given that there are strong ties between the two countries. What is it leading to? It's leading to a kind of major face-off with Wild accusations, some would say, being made by Trudeau by the day, only to cater to domestic public opinion. It puts him...
I think that you're absolutely right. I would agree with you that even the first time when he stood up in Parliament, he had political compulsions. There were scandals galore on the Canadian political scene, and he simply wanted to divert the attention of Canadians from those. So he stood up in Parliament, which has never been done for, ever in my living memory, in Canada, in Canadian Parliament. You deal with these things behind the scenes with each other. I think that was the first wrong thing he did, improperly handled it. And now he continues to just do that, because right now there is the inquiry in the foreign interference inquiry that's going on underway in Ottawa. And he was going to be testifying either today or tomorrow before that. And this simply assists him in saying, yeah, there is foreign interference. Look, this is what India is doing.
He's obviously trying to play to his vote bank, trying to appease politicians who are part of his coalition government. But how are the people of Canada seeing it? This is a country where there are more than 4 lakh Indian students studying in Canada, a country with which India has had strong ties, both members of the Commonwealth. How is the average Canadian Indian, in your view, seeing this? Many of whom have strong ties with India as well. That here is their Prime Minister taking on the Indian government in this sort of rather open, crude, brazen manner.
Well, most Indo-Canadians, including the Sikhs, are tired of the khalistani business. They don't speak up because there is terrorism, there is violence, there is extremism. People are afraid. People don't talk. Vast majority of the Sikhs and other Indo-Canadians are very unhappy with Mr. Trudeau and the Khalistani extremism that's going on here for a long, long time. That's a given. But they can't do very much. This is not a sort of a combat in the streets that you can win or lose. This is a political battle in this country. And I don't see Indo-Canadian, India and Canada relationship improving anytime soon within the mandate of Mr. Trudeau. And I might say that we might even have to look past Mr. Modi because of his so-called muscular foreign policy interventions. Because, even if you have gangsters who are directly or indirectly doing what is alleged on behalf of the government of India, that is absolutely wrong. Yeah, just because America, takes out a few people across the world doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right. Are you saying, therefore, that you see Canada also getting support, possibly from the Americans? That's one concern, that there's a lot of intelligence sharing going on between the Five Eyes countries, and therefore, do you believe that India itself will also have some answering to do to the Canadian people and the international community? And will the Canadians actually put this information that they claim they have in the public domain now?
Well, the information will come to the public domain because these are going to be public trials of various people that have been charged. So there's no question in my mind that the RCMP allegations, most of them, might turn into evidence before the Canadian courts. In terms of the U.S., Five Eyes are a very cohesive unit, and they share information and intelligence with each other. And I think the fact is that, I don't think India is totally blame-free in this situation, particularly under Modi. I'm not criticizing. I don't want to talk about Indian foreign policy, but the fact is that you and I both know that he's boasted about, sending people into your homes to kill you. And that is not very good for India. I mean, great powers do dumb stuff sometimes. Great nations don't.
The ghar mein ghuskar analogy was for Pakistan. This is now Canada, which is an entire different dimension. Therefore, I wonder, where does this go? Where do we head from here? We've heard the Canadian Foreign Minister, Melanie Joly, saying everything is on the table. There's even talk of sanctions. We've had diplomats from both countries being recalled, expelled. Do you see this spiral being stopped in the near term, or do you believe that will require possibly Mr. Trudeau to be outed from power for anything to change, given that he seems to be determined to go down this path?
Well, I'm hoping that if there is a change of government, that Mr. Poilievre would bring a different lens to this situation, and might, in fact, condemn the extremism of the Khalistanis in this country. But I'm not that hopeful of Indo-Canadian relations improving anytime soon with Mr. Modi or Mr. Trudeau. I'm being very honest with you. I think the perception abroad is that Mr. Modi is an extreme right-wing politician and it wouldn't shy away from doing violence abroad. That is the perception.
The perception in India, if I may add, is that Justin Trudeau is a prisoner of Khalistani extremists and terrorists and does what they would like and says what they would like him to say. So there are these contrasting perceptions. Trudeau is now seen by India as someone who's against India's national interests, and you probably see Mr. Modi, as you said, in a very different light. So given that, are you telling me there is no one out there who can repair the rupture?
Well, there is truth to the perceptions that you're talked about for both leaders. There is substantial truth to both of these observations that you've made for both the leaders. But I don't believe that you can improve bilateral relations going outside of the prime ministers of each country. And insofar as I'm concerned, both Mr. Modi and Mr. Trudeau have some significant defects in terms of the ability to be able to put the relationship back together.
Yeah, but Ujjal Dosanjh saying it like he sees it.